Welcome back to the Manor. Julian Mcbain here, and we are back in the Panleon Cave. So, changing it up a little bit. As you can see, the face cam is on. I'm expecting this to become a normal thing. After Resident Evil 4, my live streams will likely have the face cam as well. Which of course means wearing the tie until after the live stream's over, but whatever. Tonight we're going to talk about something really important. It's time to get serious again. Time to bring back my core content. Time to bring back the stuff that sets this channel apart from other gaming channels. A couple of years ago, the Personal Finance for Gamers series came out. The book Personal Finance for Gamers came out on my Patreon, which you can still go and get if you're a patron. There's only a $5 tier. But the world's gone crazy, as you all know. Inflation's starting to hit. The pandemic has been hitting us all hard. So now is the time to really look at things again and go back through all of the steps that you can do to protect your finances through all of these transitions, to protect your future. Because when it comes down to it, your money is your future. Now, you may believe that, well, no, I've got, a farm, or I've got a business, or I've got X, Y, and Z, and years of supplies, and all of this doesn't matter. Because no matter what comes down the pipe, trade is still important. And it doesn't matter what the currency is, the techniques of money management work no matter what currency you're using. It doesn't matter if you're using the dollar, or the pound, or a ruble, a euro, gold, Bitcoin, doesn't matter. So we're going to get real here. Going back to the core, going back to the basics. And I'm going to give you everything I can. 10 years of experience, or just shy of 10 years of experience in personal finance. Some of it I'm going to give you right here on this channel. I'm going to put more on my Patreon in the coming months. I want you, those who support me, those who have subscribed to my channel, those who give me money to produce these videos and this content, the best possible chance of keeping your finances together no matter what comes down the pipe. They don't teach us this stuff in school. They don't teach us how to manage our money correctly. They don't teach us how to make sure that at the end of the week there is more money in our bank account than there are bills coming out of it. They don't teach us how to manage things so that we're not only saving money and we're not only making money, but we're increasing our wealth and building real generational wealth. And in fact, there's almost an incentive for the powers that be to prevent that from happening. And some say that's what's happening. There's some good evidence that there is. I'm not saying that it is. Okay, maybe I am. But there's certainly evidence that that could be the case. Even if it turns out the analysis is wrong, there's strong evidence. So I want you to be best positioned to do one of several things. One, if the status quo holds once the pandemic is finally over, and we go back to the way things were pre-2020, then you'll have the tools necessary to navigate in the world we all knew. Or whatever changes that might have come to this new modified, more, dystopian future that I mentioned back in my vlog, or my podcast at the beginning of the year, then you'll have the tools to navigate that as well. And if everything collapses, you can use this as the foundation for whatever gets rebuilt. Does that mean it's going to be 100% accurate? Of course not. There isn't a single person out there who can create the perfect guideline that's going to be 100% accurate under all conditions. Doesn't exist. It's literally impossible. But what I can give you are the tools. And if you can use those tools the correct way and the circumstances that you're in, you should be okay. I mean, of course, there are going to be some outlier circumstances where that doesn't work. A Mad Max scenario, it wouldn't work. A Fallout scenario, some tools will still work. If you got bottle caps, you know how to save, you know how to budget. I mean, sure, credit doesn't matter anymore. Well, a lot of the other stuff does. So that's what we're going to start talking about. We're getting into it tonight. We're going to touch on some basics. And for the coming weeks and months, you're going to see all of my knowledge coming out on this channel and on the Patreon. So before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Also, please consider going to patreon.com/Julian Mcbain if you want to support my work. If you do, you will get exclusive content, including access to my ebook, Personal Finance for Gamers, which is largely where all this information is coming out of. I will also be updating that ebook as I find more information based upon whatever direction the current world is turning in. I do need to add a whole section on cryptocurrency because holy shit, that's exploded. So, if you want to support what I do, if you think I'm worth supporting, that's the thing. Not just if I am worth supporting, then do it. If you don't think I'm worth supporting, then please don't. I don't want you paying for something that you don't think is worthwhile. So, let's get started. Okay. The world of personal finance is a convoluted one. It should be basic mathematics, and to a certain extent it is, but there's a large portion of it that's not. And whether that was by accident or by design, no one really knows. Some will say it was by accident, others will say it was by design, and they'll use any number of variable reasons, from things that are easily verifiable to the outlandish. Realistically speaking, finance will always work on a Pareto diagram, Pareto distribution. And for those of you who are familiar with it, great. For those of you who are not, if you take a graph paper and you have your basic L like this, right? So this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. You got a standard distribution, which kind of does that whole loop bit. A Pareto distribution does this, okay? What that means is the more you have, the more you get. That's true in both wealth and in debt. The more you have, the faster it accumulates and the harder it is to lose it. The more debt you have, the harder it is to get rid of. The more wealth you have, the harder it is to get rid of. Now, true, it is far easier to get rid of wealth than debt. But if you have enough wealth, it gets real tough to get rid of it. Because there's different asset classes that you put money in to make that money more concrete in your wealth. Makes it harder to get rid of. Makes it harder to make a mistake catastrophic enough to where you lose everything. And realistically, there can come a point to where you have built up enough wealth that the only thing that could take that wealth away is government or revolution, which is essentially a change in government. So, and even then, it's not guaranteed. That's what they make lawyers for. So, that is what we're looking at. That is what money is. Money, first off, let's dispel a few things about money. Thing number one, money is not evil. Money is not good. Money is amoral. Not immoral, amoral. And what I mean by that is, money itself has no inherent morality attached to it. Zero. It's just a tool. It is a measure of value based upon in today it's not even based on any sort of valuable item. It's cloth. People say it's paper, we call it paper. It's actually cloth. Most money is made out of cotton in America, and in places like Canada it's actually, I think it's made out of a form of plastic. But it's modern money is all fiat for the most part. I should say national currencies, for the most part, if not all of them, are fiat currencies. What is a fiat currency? Fiat currency is money whose value is 100% based on your confidence in that country's ability to pay its own debts. Not backed by anything but confidence. This is why the US dollar has so much confidence behind it, because it's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Well, the other thing is the US sits on a shit ton of oil. And what oil it doesn't have, it contracts. There's more oil in the US than there is in Saudi Arabia, or in the Middle East generally. We just don't drill for it. That's why we went from being energy independent to non-independent. We went back to the standard model we've been using back previous to 2016. And you can talk about all the reasons. It doesn't matter. From a strictly financial standpoint, that's why prices got higher. You know, leaving out the politics. 2 + 2 = 4. When you cut off supply, prices go up. They cut off the supply. So, but the U.S. works on the petrodollar. Petroleum moves in U.S. dollars. That's why everyone loves the dollar. As soon as petroleum starts moving in something else, RMB, also known as the Chinese yuan, yen, Korean won, pound sterling, euros, if any of those, Russian rubles, if any of those become the primary form of trade for oil, the US dollar loses most of its value. And it's already going down anyway because of the amount of money that was printed in response to the pandemic. Again, I'm not assigning any political beliefs to this. In this particular conversation, I'm strictly looking at the 2 + 2 = 4, the strict mathematics. Those are the facts. The numbers don't lie. And that's something you really need to get through your head when it comes to finance. No matter what else is going on, numbers do not lie. They can't lie. And so you have to be willing to be honest with yourself when 2 + 2, or what you think is 2 + 2, is not equaling 4. Because 2 and 2 in that equation are usually A + B. If A + B = 4, and A equals B, then then it must be 2 + 2 = 4. If A and B = 6, and you know A is supposed to equal B, something's wrong. And so that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to go through it all. We're going to go through budgeting, credit, investments, of which will only be a more broad, high-level look at what they are and how they work, because I am no longer an investment advisor representative. I am responsible to FINRA still. They still have oversight over me for another year, if I'm counting correctly. And the information I have on any individual investment will not be up to date because that is not my day-to-day job. But I will tell you what to look for. To look for in a financial advisor, what to look for in investment products, what pitfalls to avoid. And then you get specific advice for your specific situation from someone in your state who is a fiduciary. And I'll talk about all that when we get to that segment. And again, some of that will be public here, and some of it will be on the Patreon. You got to get your money right. And it's hard. It's real hard. And your goal should be to create to borrow from Sunny Lenarduzzi, who is a content creator here on YouTube. She's a business owner. She's a content creator who teaches other content creators how to sell their stuff. She's actually really good at what she does. You need, so borrowing from her, the phrase is, you need an evergreen money machine. And you're probably going to be, Julian, if everyone takes this advice and does this, how is it going to work for everyone? Because obviously everyone will have an evergreen money machine and no one will have to work. It doesn't work like that. Contrary to popular belief, even the wealthiest of people who have trust funds that could generate all the money they need to live still need to work. They have to. Because either A, their lifestyle will outstrip what their income is, or B, in order to make that evergreen money machine work, they have to operate a business, which is the most common, or C, if you don't have a purpose, you'll screw it up. Work gives you purpose. So that's what you're going to do. You will get the tools necessary to manage your money right. This is an update from the previous series, Personal Finance for Gamers. That playlist will be updated so you know the difference when you're going through the playlists. Not everything you hear in these videos is going to apply to your situation. This is a mistake I think a lot of people make. Not every tool you have is going to be needed or wanted for your specific situation. That doesn't mean it's not important that you know the tool is there, because you never know what tools will become important later. That said, take the tools you need. Try the tools you may not know whether or not you need them. Apply them to your situation. Comment below on any of the videos if you use the tools in that video, so that other people like you know which ones might be helpful for them. Depending on where you are in the socioeconomical ladder, the more likely you're going to need similar tools to someone else in your same position. So, see how much time we have left. You wouldn't believe it, but I am blind without these. So, okay. So for the remainder of today's video, we're going to talk about a problem. It's a problem that a lot of people have. It's called the middle class problem. The working class have problems too, but believe it or not, the middle class have somewhat bigger problems than the working class. And it's not because they can't pay their bills like a lot of people in the working class or the working poor have. Those are all things that need to be dealt with. But the thing about the middle class is that, unfortunately, there is a socialization issue that affects them. It's called the middle class problem. You don't have this problem when you're with a working core or the working class, because you're not running into this issue yet. When you go from working class to middle class, you will run into it. Because oftentimes this is how you move into the middle class. The middle class problem is having more debt than you have income or assets. Oftentimes the working class, they may not even be, or no, the working class have this problem too, to a lesser extent in most cases. But there's a huge, I don't like the terms working class versus middle class, because realistically, there's a large overlap. Working class really comes down to what kind of work do you do in the grand scheme of things, whereas middle class is what economic position do you live in. So you've got the working poor, you've got the middle class, especially the lower middle class, and that whole group is all the working class. This is why class warfare doesn't work, in finance particularly, because there's too much overlap between distinctive groups. And realistically, it's just a super reductive way of looking at things. But from an economic standpoint, it's useful as a tool, as long as you don't bind yourself to it socially. From a scientific perspective, it is a useful tool to have because it allows you to analyze where everything is. So what is the middle class problem? The middle class problem is you have more debt than assets. That's going to set you behind. The question is always, how do you solve that problem? It's not an easy question to answer. And the biggest thing to say is you have to work on the debt. Well, duh. Of course you do. There are a number of debt reduction techniques out there that you can do to budget things in and make them work. The most aggressive of which is done by Dave Ramsey. I am not sponsored by Dave Ramsey. I have some issues with his methodology because it breaks most of the standard personal finance rules. We're going to do a whole video on debt reduction. However, it does work. If you suffer from the middle class problem, your first goal must be to have your assets outstrip your debts. And there are a couple of strategies that I'm going to kind of lay out here. We'll go into more depth in another video. Two options are, take the Dave Ramsey approach. Dave Ramsey is the expert on the Dave Ramsey approach. I'm not going to detract from that. I'm going to give you the simplest breakdown of it. It's going to be way oversimplified. I don't want to break copyright or anything like that. I know for a fact it works because I have family that have used it and they have gotten themselves out of debt, and they did so rather expediently. I am not poo-pooing the methodology. I have concerns over it because of my own experience, but that's not me. That's not you. You do what works for you. And you can't argue with his results. You can't argue with his results at all because they're there and the numbers are the numbers. 2 + 2 always equals 4 when you use his methodology. Basically says you have a fixed emergency fund. I think it's like $1,000. And every penny you have beyond that, over your monthly expenses, goes straight into debt until it's paid off. It's hyper aggressive. It takes a lot of work. You gotta have dedication, but it works. The Julian Mcbain method is a little bit different. The jury's still out on whether it'll get you completely out of debt, but it's functioning so far. Work on cash flows. This is a methodology the rich use. Learn through years of working with people, all the way from people who didn't have a pot to piss in to people with what's classified as institutional wealth. That's more than $50 million in assets. You pay down your debt. Use the snowball method, which means you pick a debt, and there are two options for this. You can pick the debt that's the lowest to pay off, or pick the debt with the highest interest rate. You decide. There are merits to both options. Generally speaking, picking the fastest one to pay off is the better option. The main reason, you have one less source of interest to take your money, and the dopamine hit from the win will spur you to the next win. You go from the little mobs all the way to the boss fight. Boss fight's your biggest debt. By the time you hit the boss fight, all of the cash flows from the smaller debts can be piled onto that bigger debt, so you fight the boss at a higher level and burn it down faster. I believe that might come from the Dave Ramsey methodology as well. I could be wrong about it. Someone fact check me on that. It doesn't really matter for the purpose of this video. While you do that in the Mcbain method, you're also growing your assets. Assets that generate income that you can then use to pay off that debt or to continually grow your assets. Take your pick. Because when you have more assets than debt, you are no longer stuck in the middle class problem, even if you still have debt. And there are good debts and there are bad debts. We'll get into that later. But those are the two methods that I am aware of. And I'm sure there are dozens more. Go research them, look them up. If you hear about one, drop a comment. I'll be more than happy to research it and get back to you on it. And I'll do a whole video. So, okay. Now you know what the goal of the next probably 12 months worth of videos is going to be. Back to basics. Back to what's real. Back to what it is this channel was really based on. If the world's going to go crazy, then I want those of you who have supported this channel to be best suited to make it out the other side. Now, does that mean the advice given here is going to be perfect? Of course it's not. No one can account for every eventuality or scenario. Take what works, dump the rest. And that's the advice that I would give to anyone for anything. Take what works, dump the rest. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate all of your support. Seriously, appreciate all of your support, and we'll see you in the next one.